Welcome to the second edition of the Gavel for the year 2019. I'm Linda Akibe and it's great to be here. The National Assembly is still on recess for the Christmas and New Year holiday and they're expected to resume on January 15th. Now, 2 days before the recess, President Muhammadu Buhari presented the 2019 budget before a joint sitting of the National Assembly. He laid out a budget estimate of 8.83 trillion naira based on an oil benchmark price of $60 per barrel, production capacity of 2.3 million barrels per day, an exchange rate of 305 naira per dollar, among other indices. It was a remarkable budget presentation exercise because for the first time, a Nigerian president was heckled by lawmakers in the National Assembly. Now, lawmakers are expected to begin work on the 2019 budget as soon as they resume on January 15. But in the meantime, we had a chat with the chairman, Senate Committee on Public Accounts, Senator Matthew Urhoghide, who says he's worried about some of the assumptions in the 2019 budget.
Incidentally, I'm a member of the Appropriation Committee of the Senate, and we expect that, after the first reading, today's first reading, when it's brought to the floor and, of course, it passes second reading, it's going to be sent to our committee, and then, of course, the committee is going to tell all the standing committees, to call the MDAs to come and defend, the budget. Let me quickly say, there were figures that were already bandied in the speech, to us. Number one, you can see the outlay, for capital, which is far short, compared to that of last year. We are talking about 2.03 trillion for capital this year. When, of course, what we had last year of about 2.4 trillion, nothing was done. In fact, all releases that have been bandied by government is, by the executive is 10%. So if you are checking the MDAs, no one really has gone into execution. Some have not even advertised, for the projects, in their capital for 2018. Because they are saying the procurement process must be that the money is with them before they can advertise. So 10% of last year that they have released to MDAs, all the MDAs are holding the 10% and they have not done anything about capital. So if the president is saying now we have 2.0 trillion, and if you look at that against the percentage about the total budget, you'll find out that we have gone down. Then which means what over 70% of Nigerians will benefit from, which is the capital component of, of the budget. So what majorly Nigerians, 80-90% will benefit from, we have brought it down from 3.4 trillion from 2.4 trillion to 2.03. Again, look at what we are going to spend on servicing this year. You are going to spend 2.14 trillion. I was listening to the figures. So which means we are going to tighten our belts to service these loans that have been taken. The debt that we are owing, what did you use them for? That is still the question. I'm the chairman of Public Accounts of the Senate. The first Euro bond that was taken in 2013, I think this is the opportunity for me to say, that was taken $1 billion that was raised. The same National Assembly approved it. And when they approved it, they told the DMA to mediate in that borrowing. And they raised the prospectus of that borrowing. It was stated very clearly that that money was going to be used in the power sector reform. The gas to power project was the major reason why they borrowed that money. Linda, I'm telling you today, not one penny out of that money was used. What has revealed is that NNPC that was supposed to get $600 million out of that money, when the money landed the shores of this country, the conditions that were attached to the borrowing excluded NNPC from accessing the $600 million. NNPC had to turn to somewhere else to look for the money. Now, part of that money was used for, the second Niger bridge, 10 billion. 10 billion was used for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Another one was used, to purchase the turbines, for GEC, which was mediated through the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. All right. Then some, of course, was used for, to develop, 4 airports: Abuja, Kano, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. All right. And of course, Chinese loan. It was supposed to be our own matching grant for it. Not matching, it was our own contribution because we got $500 million from Chinese. So out of that money, 100 million went for the renovation of those 4 airports. Now, the point I'm making, what was the objective of taking the loan? We're supposed to use it for capital development in some areas. All right? That money that we took, what were the conditions that were attached to that external borrowing? That $1 billion. I'm telling you on authority that the objective for borrowing that money was not met. These ones that we're now giving out, what are we paying for it? If $350 million, for instance, went to Embed, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Company, which was supposed to enable them have a proper financial standing to mediate between the Gencos and the Discos. That is still the problem we have. If the Discos are not able to pay for power, all right, Embed, Bulk Electricity Company, is supposed to mediate and help them to say, look, take some money to pay the Gencos. But do you know that that money to the domicile in NSIA? NSIA is like a bank. So what is NSIA paying as interest on that money? And what are we paying? The DMO should tell us what Nigeria is paying to service the loan. So you see, there's a whole lot of diversion, and there's a whole lot of losing focus. Now we have come again to National Assembly to borrow 2.78 to get approval for $2.78 billion to be able to execute the capital component of 2018 budget. That again, if we borrow it, that's why you are seeing that resentment. You have since borrowed, you have come for approval now over 2 or 3 months ago. If you have gotten it, where is the money? What have we used it for? So you can see budget presentation has become an annual ritual.
The Minister of Finance has said that we've been having revenue shortfalls, and even the level of implementation of the budget of the 2018 budget is not up to 50%. And then we see the President presenting the 2019 budget amidst these concerns.
Look at the assumption, which is the third thing I'm going to talk about, $60 a barrel. Is that not worrisome? Is it really achievable? Last year it was $51. We are saying, well, fine, we're praying to God, oh, let us. But with all the upheavals that we are seeing around the world, are we really going to get the $60 and get the production level of 2.3 million barrels a day? So the assumptions on which we are even placing this budget, we ought to tread very carefully. So when the President was mentioning these figures, all right, the assumptions or the benchmark, I was quite worried. And then you can see that whatever we have to do in the Niger Delta to ensure that there is peace in the place, that we guarantee this production level that is seemingly high. All right, because last year when we were talking about, we could have 1.9 million barrels. So whatever it is, the revenue ab initio has started to fall short. So if the minister that said that what we got from last year was only 60%, you should expect that even these projections are not too correct, because you have to ensure the basic things that we ensure that we are able to meet with the revenue component or the revenue side of this budget. The revenue side is quite worrisome. And then, of course, that we are going to spend, 2.14 trillion to service our loans is another thing. When, of course, what we got from last year and the projection that we had, last year it was 2.4 trillion for capital. All right? And the only excuse they always have is, compared to our GDP. Well, we have found out that, deeply, yes, economists will say there's correlation, but deeply, if we keep borrowing and we say our GDP is this huge, and then it is not translating to the life of the common Nigerian, I don't think there's any logic in it.
Now, it's obvious that revenue-generating agencies are not actually generating as much revenue as expected, contributing to these shortfalls we are seeing. What is the role of a National Assembly in oversighting them and ensuring that, they addressing these issues of revenue generation and even, the revenue getting into the Federation account?
We have come to this issue of shortfall in our revenue. Most of the MDAs, particularly the revenue-bearing agencies of government, it is very clear what they are supposed to do by virtue of the provisions of this Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. What are the consequences of agencies not paying the right revenue? Is it the National Assembly too that must compulsorily enforce the law on them, or is the executive that enforces it? What the law says is any agency that falls short of expectation, it should be reported. The Attorney General of the Federation should prosecute, the persons, and agencies that are responsible for shortfalls. But do you see them? As I speak to you, there is no substantive chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, because the same act made for the establishment of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Today, the person who is the secretary has been doubling as the acting chairman for the past 3 years. And I want to tell you, with due respect, I don't even believe that one has the competence. So the law is there for the executive to implement. And if by now they do not even have a substantive chairman for the Fiscal Responsibility Commission that is supposed to bring people to justice, if they fail to remit to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, what they are supposed to remit. So you can see it's a mockery. It is common knowledge that most of the revenue-bearing agencies of the federal government, that make collections. Number one, if they have to spend part of the money as the law prescribes, we have found out that they spend virtually all the money. I know some agencies that spend 100% of what they collect without recourse to pay to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, all right, the percentage they are supposed to pay. Even the operating surpluses that some of them, have, or they are supposed to retain, which is 80% of CROF, and then 20% of themselves, they have reversed. And there are no serious consequences. The National Assembly has made the recommendations, the opt-in time to the executive, and nothing has happened. And if you go and look at it, the present law, which is the Fiscal Responsibility Act or 207, has prescribed the route to follow. And that route to follow is for these accounts that that we have found sharp practices with, they should be referred to the office of the Attorney General for prosecution. We cannot execute that. All right? But now, what we are even trying to do, most of the agencies in Nigeria, and I want to say this with every sense of responsibility, they do not even audit their accounts. It's only in this country that agencies of government, including the courts, that are supposed to audit their accounts, and their own establishment acts, the laws establishing them, that say that they must audit their own accounts 6 months into the new year, before another budget comes, or another budget year or cycle. They are supposed to audit their own accounts, all right? And then, of course, these audited accounts will be commented upon by the Auditor General, for the Federation, which of course will be transmitted or sent to the National Assembly, and National Assembly will now send it to the Public Accounts Committees of the House of Representatives and the Senate. But my dear, I'm telling you, a lot of these agencies of government, some up to 20 years, 15 years, 11 years, 10 years. In fact, some from inception, they have not audited their accounts. So it is only suggestive of two things. One, in other climes, like in Europe, in Britain, everywhere, okay, or in America, if your account of an agency is not audited in 1 year, either that agency has become moribund, or it is crass display of ineptitude by the management. But here, government is not doing anything. My committee submitted to the Senate agencies of government, which are in excess of 400 that have not audited their accounts. As I speak, it's only 2016 audited accounts that we have in the National Assembly. This is the report. We don't have 2017. 2018 is here. So we're already in deficit of 2 years. So how do you now know the agency that's supposed to bring money to the coffers of government that have not done so? How do you not know? So it's a huge lapse. I think the executive, the president, should enforce it on the agencies that those that are supposed to make remittance to coffers of government, they don't do so, is an offense.